In this NCAA Tips 13 breakdown, we're going to take a look at a play called A-Slot Y-Flex, inside cross, and this particular play is very effective against zone coverage. And the reason for that is we're going to wind up having a deep in route along with a streak route or a seam route that's going to wind up allowing the receiver, which in this case is going to wind up being the split end who's running that deep in route, to get open. Let's go ahead and take a look at it with the telestrator. And what you're going to wind up noticing is this: the split end, he runs this route right here, which is what I was talking about earlier, this deep in route, but he kind of does a little bit of the round. He winds up rounding off in this area here, and he winds up coming across. And then we're going to wind up having this guy, which is going to wind up being the slot receiver, and then he winds up running the seam route down the left seam. And you can kind of see that he's going to wind up going up in this area here. And the idea of this is, with this particular route, is to go ahead and lift the coverage over the top. So we're going to wind up having this guy here, which is this free safety. He should wind up going in this direction here towards the slot receiver, and then the right cornerback, he's actually going to go as well into this direction here. And then that's going to allow us, as I said earlier, what's going to allow us as the quarterback, as we drop back into this area here, we should wind up finding this receiver open somewhere in this area here as far as the split in, where we can wind up making that throw and completing it down the field for a deep passing play. Now, there's one other route that we want to go ahead and talk about, and that's going to wind up being the tight end. And what he runs is a shallow crossing route or a drag route as he comes across into this area here. The idea of his route is to go ahead and hold these hook zone defenders. So in this case, say this guy was dropping back in the hook zone, he should force this guy to come back up. Now, sometimes that may not always be the case. This guy might continue to drop back. If he does, then you need to drop it underneath to the shallow crossing route that's ran by the tight end. So let's go ahead and take a look at the play, and let's just see what happens with it. As I said before, it's a nice play to go ahead and attack zone coverage, and it's certainly one that I like to run in this year's game. So let's go ahead and run the play and just take a look at it, and you can see what I was talking about here. You just got to get over the top there and make that throw. Make sure you throw it up on your stick when you press to make the throw. Make sure you throw up on the stick at about the 12 o'clock position. Picture your controller as a clock, and then that way you can go ahead and pass lead up and throw a hard bullet pass. And a lot of times you can wind up completing that. Let's look at it from the top-down view and kind of get an idea how this play actually worked. And this is one of my favorite views. Anytime I ever watch the All-22 where you can see everything going on, or the bird's eye view, I definitely like this type of view as far as my breakdown play. So again, this guy's going to wind up running this route here. So he comes across into this area here. This is going to wind up being that split in, and he rounds that route off across into this area here. And then we wind up having the slot receiver. He runs that route, which is that seam route. And as you watch, you're going to wind up seeing, as what I talked about earlier, as far as this working, you're going to see this cornerback drop into this area here. You'll see this free safety come here, and then you're going to wind up having that tight end as he comes across into this area here. And he's going to force these hook zone defenders, hopefully, to come back up. They'll drop back at least initially, and then hopefully they'll wind up coming back up here to cover him. And then that's going to allow us, as I said before, to go ahead and drop this quarterback back into this area here. And as we see this receiver coming across, let's go ahead and do this. As he comes across, he rounds it off in this area here. He should be open somewhere in this area here. So let's go ahead and look at it from the top-down view, and you should get an idea at least how this is working in slow motion a little bit more. You can see right there what I was talking about earlier. Just kind of do that a little bit. You can see that free safety's dropping back, and he comes over across into that area there. He's going towards the, if you look on your screen here, zoom in just a little bit there, you can kind of see how he's going in towards this guy here. That's that seam route. He kind of goes into this area here. Now he's playing pretty far back already. And you can also see how this corner is going in this direction here. And then there's that route that's ran by the slot receivers bringing him in. And then you kind of see, as I said earlier, about this guy coming across here. And that's the idea of it. And you can see that we just need to get the ball over there. There's one defender that we got to watch for when we make this throw. And that's going to wind up being this linebacker here as he drops back in that hook zone. But you can kind of see how that works. Now, something else I want to point out. If you don't feel like you can make that throw deep down the field, let's go ahead and zoom in just a little bit here as we continue on with this. You have two other options that you could throw to. Remember, we talked about this guy coming across, which is this tight end. You could throw it underneath. And you also have the halfback. He's coming out of the backfield on that delayed curl route, and he could be the other option. So you may want to dump it down. If you don't feel comfortable making that throw deep, you have those two other options to go ahead and throw to. So let's go ahead and continue on with it. And you can see that he winds up getting open. We wind up completing it. So certainly a nice play to go ahead and beat zone coverage with, in particular cover 3. You could probably mess with it and have some success with it as far as against cover 4. I do want to do one last thing before I get out of this particular video breakdown. I want to go ahead and take a look at, as far as my reads, is the way I like to run this play, and kind of give you an example of how I would make my reads with this particular play. So for me, The first receiver I'm going to look for is that X receiver, which is going to go ahead and come across the split end. I'm going to look for him first. And then I'm going to wind up actually looking for this guy as my second route, and that's going to wind up being him, which is going to be the tight end as he comes across. He'll be my second receiver that I'm going to look for. And then my third receiver is going to wind up being this guy right here, which is going to wind up being a halfback as he comes out of the backfield. I'm not really looking to throw to those other two receivers, the slot receiver on the left, nor the flanker who's on the right who's running the fade route. And I'm not looking for either one of those guys, so I'm just going to go ahead and put this down for you guys, just so you guys know that I'm not looking to throw to him. Not going to look to throw to this guy here, which I was just talking about earlier, nor am I going to look to throw to that guy right there. And either one of those two receivers I'm going to look to throw to. I just want to point that out to you. Mainly those other three receivers that I pointed out. So again, this play is called a slot Y flex inside cross. Very effective play as far as beating zone coverage.